views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
And hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Perspectives, where we're going front and center with the issue of Charlottesville, Virginia, where the question of white supremacy, racism, violence, and racial tensions in America has reared its ugly head once again. The Charlottesville tragedy leaving one person dead, many questions left unanswered, including the real position of President Donald Trump. That's coming up on this edition of Perspectives with yours truly, Darren Hyman.
Let them know.
What's on your mind? What's on your mind?
Let them know.
Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective with shines of light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life.
Make a difference.
What's your perspective?
Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
What's your perspective?
Let them know.
And hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Perspectives. I am Darren Hyman. Coming up on this edition of Perspectives, we go front and center with the issue of Charlottesville, Virginia, the recent racial tensions that have sparked across America, and where do we go from here? But of course, every week we invite you to stay connected to us here on Perspectives. You can watch us on BronxNet's Channel 67 or anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. Also hit us up on social media, Facebook, BronxNet Perspectives, Twitter, and then also my professional page on Facebook, Darren C. Hyman, and there you can get more information and share your perspective as well. But as we said, coming up, the recent racial tensions in Charlottesville, Virginia, have really sparked an outcry from people all across America. Where are we going? Are we going back? Some people say we're making America great. Some people say we're making America worse. Well, joining us here to talk a little bit about the tragedy in Charlottesville, Virginia, and the racial tensions in America, we're pleased to be joined by Kamar Newman, who is the co-chair of the Bronx Young, or I should say Queens County Young Democrats. And good to have you share with us, Kamar.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Good. And so as we talk about this tragedy here in Charlottesville, Virginia, first of all, your thoughts.
I'm disgusted and not really surprised at what had happened down in Charlottesville, seeing the way that Donald Trump has been going around with his rhetoric. This is something that was bound to happen, and, you know, it happened sooner rather than later, so this way, you know, the African-American community, Muslim, Jewish community knows how to prepare themselves for such things in the future.
When you look at and I was having a conversation on the previous show about the KKK, white supremacy. I was saying, in some senses, it looked like things had died down. The guest earlier said, no, they just were put away, but it's now just more bolden and brazen.
I agree. It never really went away. It was just kept in certain areas where they were freely able to express their hatred of others. At this time, now that we have a president that is not going against them, and that's his voter base, they feel a lot more comfortable being out there in public and saying what they want to say, because there's not going to be a retaliation against them from the Trump White House.
So for yourself, a young black man who just experienced President Barack Obama as the president of the United States, now to walk into having a president such as Donald Trump, and this happened under his watch, what's it like for you, the correlation between both worlds?
Well, let's look at when President Obama was in office and how some white Americans were going against him, calling him racial names, drawing him as a monkey, and now we went over to the Donald Trump presidency, and then you have the white supremacists that are saying, well, you know, the African American community is talking bad about, you know, President Trump, saying that he's not their president, you know, so they're kind of feeling the heat that we had when President Obama was in office.
Yeah, and that's a pretty significant heat that they're feeling, but necessary. When you look at what's going on and you look at the fact that the president actually in the White House took off civil rights. When we talked about civil rights, that was one of the first things that came off of the White House's website. And then we see what happens in Charlottesville, Virginia right now, and you kind of get the feeling that civil rights, the rights of those who are of brown skin and Muslims and immigrants really are being challenged on a daily basis, and it's not a priority coming out of Washington.
Yeah, it's really not. And, you know, when he was running for the presidency and people were speaking about his father and saying that his father was at a KKK rally in Jamaica, I said to a lot of people, well, you know, if you see what his dad is doing, just wait and you'll see what he would do, because the apple did not fall far from the tree.
And so you have a situation with him who literally now is at the front and center for his comments now, saying that both sides are to blame, which has gotten a wealth of criticism, even from staunch Republicans who have, you know, denounced this. Your thoughts, your reaction to hearing the President of the United States say both sides are to blame?
I think that with the comments that he had made, when he first came out against it, it was just, you know, his staffers saying, you need to comment on this, you need to comment on it a certain way. And when he came out and made his second comment saying that he was waiting on the facts, he was really speaking what was on his mind and what he really felt. Donald Trump just showed us who Donald Trump is. As I was listening to, you know, CNN earlier, I heard a gentleman saying that he's been friends with Donald Trump for 15 years, and Donald Trump has never showed him any sign of him being racist or bigot. And I'm saying, well, you know, you may have known him for 15 years, but that's a business level. You don't know him on a personal level. So Donald Trump came out to America and showed him what he really is like personally.
I did an article, a piece long before President Trump was President Trump, when he was back on The Apprentice. And when he was on The Apprentice, there was a young man that was African American, and he did business degrees, 3 degrees, and when it came time to get down to the final showing of who was going to be the apprentice, Donald Trump in the show said, well, maybe we'll go for a tie, and maybe we'll make it a tie. For the first time ever, we'll have 2 apprentices instead of 1, because he really didn't want to give it to a young black man. And then hearing later on him saying, well, you know, I feel sorry for African Americans because they have no real role models in their community. And so you get the idea that from the gate that this is a man who's walked with a certain belief system. But what's it like for you now seeing it actualized as President of the United States?
For me, seeing it is just, you know, I knew that it was going to happen. It was, you know, it was about time. It was about time that, you know, something like that was going to happen. You know, we've all said that, you know, Donald Trump gets elected, things are going to change. And it wasn't going to be for the better. It was going to be for the worse. And here we are on, what's today's date? You know, the 16th of August. Here we are. Things are starting to get worse. And that's where we, as the African-American community, the colored community, needs to step up and say, we're not going to let this happen, and we need to start fighting.
Well, now here's what he said, interesting enough. He said that as president, he feels like racial relations and racial tensions have either gotten the better or the same since he's been the president of the United States. He went as far as to saying with President Obama that President Obama was not the one that actually spoke out all too often as quickly about racial incidents, and he's taken the same page as President Obama. You say what?
I say that Donald Trump is full of it, and he is trying to play the political card so that he could somehow think that he's going to win the election in 2020.
Do you think his election is going to be tainted in 2020? Do you think it's because I mean somewhere along the line we all said this for a while. You know, listen, he's you're a young Democrat, but we looked at it and said, listen, he has no chance, and it went from having no chance to a chance.
I never said that he didn't have a chance, and I'll tell you why I didn't say that. A lot of us here in New York City live in a bubble, in my eyes. The summer 2016, I had flew to Washington State and drove back to New York. And all those northern states, you would see on the side of their barns, big Trump banners, all the way back. And at that moment, I realized that Trump did have a chance to win. Now, was it going to be because he got all the votes, or was it because Russia got involved? Who really knows? But point being is that Trump won. Here we are, and we have to start coming together and organizing to be able to fight and defend ourselves for what's coming down the pipeline from this White House.
Still have more show coming up. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back right after this.
And I can't change, even if I tried, even if I wanted to. My love, she keeps me warm. 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 She keeps me warm.
We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Love is kind. Love is patient.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
Continuing our conversation, following up on the tragedy in Charlottesville, Virginia. We call it a tragedy because, yes, a person did lose their life, but in addition to a person losing their life, also, it seems as though we've taken a step back in time. It looks much like the 60s. And Kamara, as I was talking a little bit in the break, but when I talk about the 60s, you talk about the 60s, you talk about the KKK. KKK were known for wearing sheets. They were known for being disguised. And, you know, the fires and, you know, you pretty much were, it was covert. What we saw last week was pretty much overt. You saw a man who was driving a car and he had no problem displaying his license plate. And the overt racism, white supremacy, white nationalist movement, the alt, as it's being called. What does it make you feel like being a young man in 2017?
It makes me feel like I hope that I don't have to work with any of these individuals because, you know, I'm originally from the Bronx, and, you know, if you want to attack me that way, then best believe you're going to see the Bronx side of me. You know, I'm completely against what they stand for, as everyone should be. The bravery that they have to finally show their face is letting the world know that these people are not afraid to die for what they believe in. And they're not afraid to kill, as we could see that happened to Charlottesville, for what they believe in.
So, take me back to the 60s today. Do you look at it and say, wow, same?
I look at it and it's not the same because, again, as you said, they were wearing sheets, they had hide their face so that, you know, they could go out into the world and do what they were doing. Now, they could walk around at these rallies and say all they want, all this hate, all this bigotry, and go back to work the next day with no fear of losing their jobs.
You know, the funny part is these are people with suits, ties, professors, educated people. And so there was this misnomer that the people who were actually participating were people with no education, no class, no whatsoever. But these are people highly educated, some. who just have a basic belief system that it's okay to feel this way and to live this way and to be this kind of way. I think for some people, there's a question about seeing it overtly. And it's almost like a new revelation to some people. Seeing it overtly with no sheets over your head, nothing over your head, but you can just blatantly say what you say and feel okay about that.
Well, I gotta also, we gotta think about some of these guys that are walking around. We gotta ask, have they ever really met a colored person in their life? Because when I used to attend school in upstate New York, I met one white female that said her parents had raised her to believe that African American males were nothing but thugs and killers and deserved to be in jail. And she was, she was open to me about what her parents had taught her, and she said, well, I want to see what it's like, talking and seeing what the black culture was like. And, she got the idea that, it's not what her parents had told her the whole time growing up, but at the same time, she couldn't do certain things because of the fact that her parents would would kind of disown her for having a black friend.
And so coming from the young Democratic perspective, you see this, you hear the president speak, the Republican Party has actually spoken out and denounced this. What does this do for you in terms of motivation for the upcoming election?
Well, what it does is just try to get people to get out and vote, honestly, so that the Democrats could get the majority in the Senate or inside the House, hopefully both. But once we are able to change the parties that are in control at on the congressional level, we'll hope to see a change from what's coming in the White House, maybe impeachment, who knows? Because I highly don't think Donald Trump will either last all 4 years or even be able to run for the election.
Well, I've heard a lot of people say impeachment. I just don't see it happening. If they haven't got him before they got in office, I doubt, that's it. I was a journalist when President Clinton was impeached, covered his last State of the Union address when he was impeached in Washington, D.C., and I looked at the fact that you had an impeached president that still stayed in office even though he was impeached. And my optimism of hearing, or the optimism that I think I hear people talk about when they talk about a president could possibly be impeached, it could happen, but he can still stay in office because the legal route is a long one. So, for me, I feel like, it's almost like 4 years you're going to have to grin and bear it no matter what. Not have to grin, but you're going to have to bear it. How do you address voters in this season, given the fact that there is a good chance that you will have to deal with this president for at least another 4 years?
Well,
or 3.5, yeah.
Well, he's done it for us. He's put himself out there, his rhetoric, what he has done. That's all we have to really show the voters and say, is this what you guys want to continue with for the next 3.5 years? Look at the Republicans. Republicans aren't speaking out against him. There's some that are speaking out against him. There's some that aren't because they're so worried about what's going to happen in the next election, the fact that they might lose their seat. So that's all we have to do is really start pushing for voters to pay attention to what the president is saying, and they have to really ask themselves, is this something that they want to deal with throughout the rest of his presidency?
So let me ask you this question. I've had Democrats on here. We've had this conversation before, too. And so understand the president does have a lot of baggage with him, more baggage than most in this, and has done, some really horrific things from behind the desk of the Oval Office, from my perspective, my vantage point. But on the part of Democrats, do you feel that it's important that there has to be more of a message other than just look at what the Republican Party is doing, look at what this president's doing? Because one of the very clear things that I think came out of this last election was that a lot of people felt that the Democrats' message did not resonate with people. How do you get people to resonate with a message?
Well, now the Democrat Party has changed their message. It's now one of resist and fight, right? Before, they were all, everyone was pointing fingers. Look at what Donald Trump is doing. Look what the House Speaker is doing. Now, it's they have a message where it's like, we're not just going to sit there and point fingers. We're going to do something about what you guys are doing, i.e., trying to repeal Obamacare. Everyone in the Democratic Party said they were against it, and I'm sure they had to lobby some Republicans to vote against it. And look what happened. It worked. So the Democratic Party is really pushing the message of resist and fighting back.
All right, take a quick break. Be back with more. Stay with us. We'll come right back right after this.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Morning, Gary. We are GetSchooled.com. You want a college education, don't you? Gary, financial aid forms. Biology homework, G. What? Picking a college, man. You and us go together like tacos and Tuesday.
And I love tacos.
Behold the angry giant. Behold the angry giant. Behold the angry giant. Behold the angry giant.
It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Well, Thomas, you've got prediabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon, too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have prediabetes. Big time.
Continue our conversation talking about the racial tension that has emanated since Charlottesville, Virginia. Well, it hasn't just emanated since Charlottesville, Virginia, but it really has become the latest that we can talk about. And so when we talk about moving forward and educating voters, and do you think that this is going to be enough to push people to the polls? Because the sad part about it is when you look at this last election, people said, well, the African American community didn't come out to vote. But the reality is that 53% of Americans who could have the opportunity to vote didn't vote.
Well, this wouldn't be enough to get people to get out and vote. We actually have to go out there and speak to the constituents and find out what's their quality of life issues, because this is not just the only issue that is bothering people here in America. You know, if Democrats really want to take back the House or take back the Senate, they really need to get on the ground and get involved with their communities. What was your next question?
The question that I was going to ask is then about also coming to the next election. Because as we talk about 2020 coming around the corner, the new presidential election coming around the corner, fielding a candidate for the Democratic Party that has to be Teflon Don, almost like Donald Trump has been. I mean, he had plenty of things shot at him, but he was able to deflect a lot of things. But when you look at Hillary Clinton, certainly did not demonstrate that. What kind of candidate is going to be necessary in 2020 to really resonate to get the people out there to vote?
Definitely somebody. No, I wish it was Joe Biden, but you know what? Joe Biden does have the charisma to actually be the next leader of the United States. But then you also want to take into account for, you know, their age. So you want to pick I think the Democratic Party would need to pick someone that has just that raw charisma, that raw leadership that everyone will fall behind and will help win and get to the White House.
Some people have said Elizabeth Warren for president.
Next question. Next question.
See,
there's nothing wrong with Senator Warren. It's just I think we need someone new and someone fresh that's gonna have new ideas to bring to the table.
Yeah. So as we look to 2020 and we look at local elections here also, how do you think this plays out? What's happening in Charlottesville? How does this play out locally for for voters, for those who are working in the party? How does this play out locally amongst our community?
Well, it plays out like this. People just want to know that their elected officials are there and are willing to give a statement about what happened and condemn what had taken place, and just that's pretty much what constituents are looking for, what their elected official feels about the situation.
And do you think hearing a statement from your elected official makes a difference?
For me, yes, but again, we live in New York City, so I think we live in a sanctuary city. There's not really much for us to worry about here in the city. Upstate, I say, it's a different story.
A lot to worry about.
There's more to worry about upstate because my view from driving upstate a lot, there just aren't a lot of black people around. And most times, some of these towns upstate have colored people in their communities as if there's a college and college is in session.
Take back, I got time? Do I have time for one more question? I got time for one more question. So if you had to forecast in a crystal ball, what do you see for coming in the near future? What would you think we should, what we'd be saying coming up?
Well, I would hope that we would start, a conversation, because what happened in Charlottesville, there's always something that's gonna come behind the curve with that, and we need to talk to our family, talk to our kids, just to make sure that they know to stay safe out there when they walk the streets or wherever they're going. If someone is going out of state, be careful, because after what happened, who knows what's going to happen next.
Well, thank you so much, Kamar, for coming and sharing with us and giving us your perspective. And certainly, as the young Democrats in Queens out there making their move, make sure that you come on back and let us know what's happening as we get engaged. And we'll get some Bronx young Democrats, some Queens young Democrats, and we'll have a forum.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
Likewise.
All righty, listen, that about wraps it up for this edition of Perspectives. I am Darren Jaime. I want to thank you for watching. Of course, stay tuned to our show. We'll continue to bring you all the latest in news and information. Of course, as racial tensions continue to rise, we want to continue to be a voice for those who are the voiceless, and also be able to pass out information and bring you aware and give you perspective, different perspectives. So we may not always agree, but the job Perspectives is always to share a perspective, and so that's what we did today. For all of us here on the show, we thank you for watching. Until next time we meet, stay safe, share your perspective with somebody else. It just might make a difference in someone else's life.
Let them know.
What's on your mind? What's on your mind?
Let them know.
Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective which shines a light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life. What's your perspective?
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with Dachshund Reading.
No.
Let me try. Sarah's bright, but when she's reading, she has trouble sounding out words.
Playing world music.
What?
I give up.
Wait, I was trying to show you how Sarah feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues to help your